Can we bring a dead person back to life? To test this, some experiments were conducted on dogs in the early 1900s that would shock any ordinary person. In one such experiment, a severed dog's head was connected to a machine that mimicked the function of the heart and lungs. The head responded to stimuli like licking when citric acid was applied to its mouth, and reacting when a light was shined into its eyes or when a hammer tapped nearby. This suggested that the dog was not only biologically revived but was also aware of its surroundings. However, questions remain. How could the dog have been revived without all other organs functioning properly? Were such experiments ever tried on humans, and if so, what were the results? We will explore these scientific experiments on the revival of the dead, which could also offer life-saving skills useful in emergencies. The fear of death is ultimate for most people, and attempts to revive the dead often evoke even greater horror. These experiments were conducted in an era when such tests would be unthinkable today, given modern human and animal rights. The beginnings of these experiments date back to 1914 to 1923 in Soviet Russia, a period still referred to as the reign of death in Russia's history. During this decade, events like World War I and civil unrest led to the premature deaths of around 15 to 20 million Russians. The new Soviet government tried to improve conditions, but a group of Soviet scientists became almost obsessed with death, publishing works like Life and Death, What is Death and Revival. In 1924, a renowned pathologist, George L. Shore, suggested a dedicated field of science focused on studying death, which he proposed naming thanatology after the Greek god of death, Thanatos. Two prominent scientists from that era, Soviet scientist Sergei Brukhanenko and American scientist Robert Cornish, took extreme measures to understand death practically. Cornish became infamous for his mad scientist reputation due to his attempts to revive the dead using a seesaw to circulate blood in corpses, injecting them with chemicals like adrenaline and heparin. His idea was that oxygen would enter the blood through the mouth and nose, potentially reviving the corpse. However, despite his efforts, not a single corpse came back to life. Cornish argued that the corpses had been dead for too long, and if he had fresher bodies, his method might have worked. Brukhanenko, however, took a more scientific approach. In 1925, he developed an autojector, a machine designed to mimic the function of the heart and lungs. It used electric pumps connected to blood vessels in the neck and an oxygen vessel, where blood was oxygenated and pumped back into the body. This invention, which simulated a functioning cardiovascular system, later inspired the artificial life support systems used in modern open-heart surgeries. After connecting to the pump, the second pump will re-inject oxygenated blood into the body, which can potentially revive a deceased being. This technique was demonstrated publicly by Brujko as a proof of concept, showing it worked better than Cornish's approach. Unfortunately, the revived dogs only survived for an hour and 40 minutes. Brujko then realized he had to refine his technique even more, so he escalated his experiments. This time, he took a live dog, cut a main artery in its neck, and extracted all its blood to ensure it was fully deceased. After waiting 10 minutes to confirm there was no remaining chance of life, he connected the corpse to the auto-injector in an attempt to revive it. The dog recovers completely, as if it had never died, which essentially demonstrated bringing a creature back to life after it had clinically died. Naturally, the success of this experiment raises the question of whether Brujko ever tried this on humans. But there is no documentation indicating he did. However, the experiment clearly shows that if blood and oxygen are supplied to a dead body within a 10-minute time frame, it could potentially be revived. But why only keep the dog dead for 10 minutes? Why not longer? This 10-minute window is something you might have heard of in movies, where doctors often say, if only the patient had been brought in 10 minutes earlier, they could have been saved. You may also have seen that when a person is dying, their ECG monitor shows a flat line. In such cases, doctors immediately administer an injection, followed by a shock to try and revive the victim. This poses the question, is 10 minutes the final limit, after which a dead person can no longer be revived? Death is a process, not a single event, and during natural death, like after a severe accident, the body undergoes several stages. The first is the shock stage, triggered by trauma such as blood loss or organ damage. Here, the body diverts blood to essential organs, brain, heart, lungs, causing cold extremities and a rapid pulse. If bleeding is controlled, survival can extend for hours, highlighting the importance of stopping blood loss in emergencies. Without intervention, significant blood loss leads to hypovolemic shock, where oxygen-deprived organs cause weakness, confusion, rapid breathing, and eventually unconsciousness. This stage is often fatal but can be reversible with immediate medical help providing blood and oxygen. If intervention is unsuccessful, organs begin to shut down, leading to the clinical death stage. In clinical death, excessive blood loss causes the heart and breathing to stop, and the pulse is undetectable. In Brutchko's experiment, the dogs were revived after 10 minutes following this type of death. Typically, doctors have about 10 minutes to restart the heartbeat, but if they fail, the patient moves to the final stage, biological death, or brain death. Here, due to a lack of oxygen, the brain cells and other organs begin dying rapidly. The victim's pupils become fixed and dilated, marking the final irreversible stage, as the brain cells are beyond repair, like trying to reassemble broken glass. Sometimes, even after clinical death, a patient can be revived, but many brain cells may be dead, leaving them in a comatose or vegetative state. Imagine a person with a beating heart and functioning organs but a brain that no longer responds. Cardiac arrest patient Carol is an example of this. Her heart stopped completely, clinical death, but she was revived after 45 minutes. Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Revival Research at Stony Brook University, suggests Carol is not the only patient to have been revived hours after death. In some cases, defibrillators are used to attempt revival by delivering a shock to the heart, often in combination with CPR. In cases like Carol's, CPR, which mechanically pumps blood, was administered right after her heart stopped, increasing her chances of survival. Such knowledge is crucial because CPR can make a difference in emergency situations like heart attacks or drowning. In situations like this, we often feel confused about whether to rush the victim to the hospital ourselves or wait for an ambulance. The decision must be made quickly based on an approximate assessment of how much time the victim has. In the medical field, there's a concept known as the trimodal distribution of trauma deaths. This categorizes trauma deaths into 3 types based on the injuries the patient has sustained, allowing an estimate of how much time the patient has. The first category, immediate deaths, occurs when a person may die within seconds or minutes due to severe brain or spinal cord injuries or major blood vessel ruptures. Victims in this category often have little chance of survival, as they typically only last a few minutes post-accident. The second category, early deaths, includes those who may survive for a few minutes to several hours, often suffering from abdominal injuries, lung injuries, or moderate bleeding. This is where the golden hour comes into play, emphasizing the importance of prompt first aid during the first hour after an accident. Finally, late deaths are rare and usually happen days or even weeks later due to complications such as infections near the injury site. Understanding these categories underscores the urgency of timely action, as most deaths occur during that critical golden hour. In developed countries, ambulances are staffed with trained medical personnel and fully equipped with essential medical amenities, enabling them to quickly restart a victim's blood circulation and supply oxygen through a mask until they reach the hospital. In underdeveloped countries, most ambulances don't offer these facilities, and people are often unaware that they can opt for advanced life support ambulances, which have the necessary life support equipment. At the end, understanding these stages of trauma and the body's responses can make a real difference in emergencies. The shock stage is a critical window where even simple first aid, like controlling blood loss, can extend a person's survival until professional help arrives. Remember, every second counts. In situations where every action can make the difference between life and death, don't hesitate to step in. Your quick response could save a life. Thank you for watching, and by staying informed and prepared, we contribute to a safer, more caring society. Let's think, discover, and grow together.